Does debt collection as a human endeavor go away, or does it just radically shrink, kind of like maybe like agriculture did, 200 years ago? 70,
Yeah.
80% of people were on farms, were involved in food production. Now it's like 2%. Does
Yeah.
debt collection in the next 5 or 10 years go kind of the way of the farmer? Like, it's just like it's not really done by humans anymore?
Yeah, I mean, our main thesis is that like AI can completely replace and automate the entire service of the collection agency. So
Mm.
there's these large collection agencies that exist out there, a couple of like one or two publicly traded companies as well, where it's these entire divisions of humans doing it, doing really very repetitive tasks that our
Right.
AI can not only completely automate, but is doing better than the humans themselves. So I really think that it will completely replace humans. I think what the debt collection industry might look like in the future.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ignite podcast. Today we're delighted to have Sean O'Brien on the program. He's the founder and CEO of CollectWise, innovative company utilizing large language models. Have you heard of those? To collect debts and scale out debt collection. What a cool use case. Thanks so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, would love to get an intro from you for the audience.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm the founder of CollectWise. We're automating debt collection with generative AI. Just some background, I started my first company several years ago. It was a digital agency, so kind of doing marketing campaigns, stuff like that. After that, I launched a B2B payment software called Astrius, ran that for around a year or so, and eventually pivoted to CollectWise, which is now taken off and what I'm focusing on right now.
That's so cool. What was the inception? What was that aha moment for CollectWise where you're like, hey, I think we could use large language models to do this?
Yeah, so originally with Astrius, we had a couple of unpaid debts ourselves dealing in kind of the payment software area. And our customers had it as well with unpaid invoices, and we could see this data through our platform. And we kind of looked into potentially like both the collect debts for ourselves as well as potentially as an add-on for our customers, ways to do it. I kind of went into the debt collection industry, realized that every single collection agency was still operating like they're from the ninth. Spoke to many owners of different collection agencies as well. Realize that this entire process of collections with us from the calling standpoint, text messages, emails can be completely automated with AI and LLMs. And we kind of launched this initial product, something we kind of hacked together, and it really immediately took off and really can automate almost the entire collection process now.
That's pretty remarkable. I mean, and I have a lot of empathy for this use case and this problem. In college, I spent a year at a customer service center. It was one of my college jobs, and I worked at VoiceStream, which is now T-Mobile. And I was in the collections department. So I started in like regular customer service, and then I moved over after, 3 months to debt collections. And the way it worked was you would go to make a phone call, but you're past due, and it would just get routed to me. And so I was the T-Mobile debt collector. And it was funny because they had all kinds of metrics, like time to close a call, money collected per call, all kinds of stuff, percentage collected. And so you like make payment plans with people and stuff like that. So I have a lot of empathy for the space.
Yeah, exactly.
Given my experiences, I remember crying tears of joy when I left that job. Finally, it was such a mind-numbing job. So it's great to see something like this using AI to collect debts. Now, what's the kind of the double-edged sword here of this, right? Because you could make a case like, well, that sounds scary, right? Like AI now is out there swarming people who are in debt, trying to get them to collect. What are some positives and negatives here?
Yeah, well, so I guess starting on the positives. So I mean, in terms of like the job in the collection industry, like you mentioned, really not the most ideal job for agents to be doing these really mind-numbing tasks. By leveraging AI, we're able to automate all of that process and have human agents, if they're still involved, only be in the key parts where they have the highest amount of leverage. And in terms of the impact on the consumers, which we're kind of really focusing on in terms of like what our end effect is, we believe that the use of AI, particularly in our use case, has an immensely positive effect by making the collections process a lot more respectful, efficient, and tailored towards their each individual financial circumstances. Kind of like you mentioned, like a college student originally getting out of college, not having the best day, on the phone, getting a lot of calls. You can imagine that there's going to be a lot of slip-ups through there. It's maybe not the best experience. Whereas if you have an AI agent that can individually tailor every single situation to the individual debtor, and they knows kind of like what payment plans they need, when they're getting paid from their employer, so they can set up payment plans that helps them get out of debt, help like increase their credit score, stuff like that. That's really what our end goal is. And in terms of like what we do, and we're kind of building it and thinking from like the consumer side up.
Yeah, I love that because, uh, large language models now are passing tests at the 99th percentile for lots
Yeah.
of different standardized tests, right? And so you could argue it's, past the Turing test, and you could also argue like it's, meeting human level cognitive abilities. And here's a really great example, right? Now you have this very smart assistant that can go out and automatically collect debt and tailor that debt collection method and plan to every individual. Versus before, you have some college student or some somebody that's not really into it, right? It's just kind of doing it for the paycheck. And now the AI can be infinitely patient and flexible. So how does it work? How do you guys go implement this? Like, what kind of channels do you use? And how does that all work end to end?
Yeah, so in terms of how the overall process works, so we have a dashboard set up, which are the creditors, who are essentially these companies that are owed money. So mainly like financial institutions, healthcare companies, utilities, telecommunications. Their collections department or their CFO would get set up with their platform, and they submit debts to us on an ongoing basis in bulk, usually via like a CSV file. Essentially how it works, our system automatically enriches that information, so determines if it's the right number, will skip trace if needed, which essentially locates and enriches the debtor information, whatever the updated number is. Then we utilize channels such as emails, text messages, and phone calls. So how that works is we'll send out personalized SMS email campaigns with like an AI agent that is talking to the debtor on a one-on-one basis. And it's kind of like a conversational AI channel where they will respond back via SMS. The AI agent will respond back in accordance to what they said, whether that's setting up on a payment plan, showing them why they owe the debt and kind of pointing out the terms of the contract that was uploaded. And then in addition, we also do phone calls on a recurring basis as well. So the AI agent's talking on the phone, almost indistinguishable from human agents now, and getting increasingly better every single day. And again, kind of going through that process, managing disputes, payment plans, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And how do you guys price it? Is it on a debt collected basis? Is there like a SaaS platform fee? How's that work?
Yeah, so our pricing is strictly performance-based. We just charge a percent of the amount that we successfully collect. So if we're not successful, we don't make any money either. And we just think that pricing really aligns all parties in a way that's really efficient.
So it's kind of like risk-free if you're the debtor here. I think I phrased that right. If you're the person that needs to collect the debt,
right,
the business, it's kind of like, hey, why not try CollectWise?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very low friction kind of selling
give
point.
us some of your debts and we'll go after them. And if we're successful, and that's how these debt collection agencies work anyway. It's typically a percentage.
Yeah, what we do is like they can start off just with like a really small portion of their debts. I think one thing that's interesting is that a lot of these large institutions will have a very high volume of small debt sizes that they aren't even going after because the cost of collecting it with humans exceeds the individual return they get. So if they wanted to, they can even start with that, which are already written off on their balance sheet. We get to try that out, very low friction, all performance based, and then can kind of further scale up from there.
I love this use case too, which is, some of these debts are so small, it doesn't even make sense to pay a human 20 or 30 bucks an hour, whatever it is, to make these phone calls and send these emails. But AI is, infinitely scalable, and on the margin to make that next email or SMS or phone call, it's practically free, right? And so all these like little $10, $20, $50 debts are all of a sudden now collectible, right? You're kind of unlocking all this write-off that you just kind of wrote off.
Yeah, it's either completely uncollectible, or they will charge like a human agency will charge like a 50%, 70% contingency fee, which is like extremely high just to take into account that it's like a smaller size debt. And a lot of times those fees, whether directly or indirectly, will get passed on to the debtor. So by kind of automating this process, we save money on every single end of the party, both the consumer making the payments as well as these creditors that need to collect these debts.
Now, is the what is the typical percentage when you collect a debt?
Yeah, so the typical percentage is around 25%.
Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. And is that like typical for, large debts that debt collection agencies will charge, or are you guys pricing it at a kind of a lower than the agencies charge?
Yeah, so the way we think about it, so agencies will charge between 30% to 40% on average, so we're lower than them. Our gross margins are around 90%, so we can even go lower than 25% to like 15% or 10% if there's like larger debt sizes that we need to compete against. And But the way that we look at it is we can justify charging even higher pricing because we're not only competing on cost, but the performance of our AI agents are consistently beating human agents as well because of all those factors I mentioned. It can have higher volume of communications. It can personalize every single interaction. So we're able to leverage that along with the fact that we open the market to all of these other debt sizes, and we have an overall higher recovery rate relative to a collection agency that we charge it not only less than a collection agency, but also have much higher recovery rates overall. So they generate a positive return.
That's crazy. And then is it just SMS and email, or are you also doing some of the voice stuff now?
Yeah, so SMS, email, voice, we leave it voicemails, which sound pretty much exactly like a human, and phone calls as well. So on the call, context switching, utilizing different communications at the same time. The AI agent will be on the phone, talking to them, maybe has to send an SMS message, stuff like that. And then also automating a lot of these legacy collection filings in the industry, like credit bureau reporting, garnishments, or stuff like that if needed.
That's crazy. How big is this industry?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very large industry. We calculated the TAM at like $37.5 billion. And
the
reason
total
why
debts to be collected, that's 25% of the debts that need to be.
Yeah, so that's not a, that's so essentially how we calculate it. There's about $500 billion in uncollected debts filed by creditors each year. You multiply that by 30% net recovery rate, so that's the percent of debts we've achieved so far, and then multiply that by the 25% fee that we charge is how we get to a $37.5 billion overall market size. And I think the reason why it's so large is because we're not just providing this software that's used as like a SaaS fee to like collection agencies or like other to kind of empower existing collectors. Because with AI, we can now completely replace the service itself. So the TAM becomes not just the SaaS fee, but the actual entire market of the services with AI instead.
Yeah. So I would imagine, wiring this up when you got started was pretty easy, right? You just, ping the OpenAI API and just start doing stuff and doing some prompt engineering. Where did it kind of get hard? Like, where was it sort of like, ooh, now I need to really start customizing this?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's like an infinite number of edge cases that you have to deal with in debt collection that make it extremely hard. And because of like strict compliance requirements and other different instances, you have to make sure that it 100% can handle every single edge case. So that was a really big difficulty. There's like situations where maybe there's like multiple parties involved with the same debt, or like they have a dispute, but also a payment plan, these different edge cases that you have to handle. Yeah. That's difficult. The conversational voice AI part, so talking on the phone and kind of being indistinguishable from a human and having good latency as well, so it can respond back right away.
Extremely what API are you using for the voice, by the way?
Yeah, we're using Resemble AI for the to essentially clone human agents because that's how it sounds better and more realistic. So we're using that, and then some custom things on the back end as well for like the back.
We have a portfolio company, Bland AI.
I looked at I looked at Bland. We may use them as well, especially for like certain conversations that we need because they have a lot built in that makes it easier.
Yeah.
But
well, let me know if you want an intro there. I'm happy.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's amazing. So, and I can empathize with this, right? Because I built a sales chatbot, 7-8 years ago now, at a company where we followed up with sales leads, automatically using AI. And it was a challenge, right? Because you're having to classify and branch all these possible conversation paths. And this was just following up sales leads. So I can imagine with debt collection, it's got to be even more massive of an undertaking. Of just trying to figure out, okay, identifying all these intents and entities, doing it in a very deterministic way with large language models, which, statistically are just not deterministic. Yeah, I bet that's been a challenge.
Yeah, and I think it's not just being able to do the job, but it's being able to do it well and continuously improving our collection success rates. So one of the biggest things we kind of like always are keeping in mind is our data advantage and kind of using that as a moat against any future competition. So as we work with other financial institutions, healthcare companies, we plug into their data set and we're constantly building up this massive, large data set of consumer debt interactions that's getting our collection success rate higher and higher every single time we talk with the debtor. And I think that's really important, especially across all of these different omni-channel communications.
Yeah. Are you guys also kind of dogfooding a bit, like using some of your AI to go out and acquire some of these customers? Or how are you guys, like, what's your growth hacking strategies right now?
No, actually, yeah. So we are doing a little bit of that on the sales side because it is somewhat similar in terms of like the outreach for like sales.
Yeah, you're collecting meetings instead of collecting debt, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we actually did. So like for B2B outreach, what I'll do is like a strategy that I kind of use somewhat similar still from like my agency, but now implementing AI into it as well. So we'll like find out like ideal customers, whether if it's like a slightly smaller company, you can go direct to like the CFO maybe for this. If it's a larger company, they might have an in-house director of collections,
Accounts receivable or something.
Yeah, accounts receivable, billing manager, if it's healthcare, director of revenue cycle management. So get these lists of contacts, make it hyper personalized. So you either have something directly, a direct connection related to them, whether it's like a school that you went to, or it's just like something they're interested in, to make those every single communication hyper personalized.
You've automated that little one line personal connection
those
thing?
one line things kind of hooked up.
Is there a tool that you use for that? Like I've been trying to find something like that.
Yeah, just GPT-4o. I mean, it was just like a custom thing, just like upload the list.
Wired it up yourself.
Minor, yeah. And then we'll use like Woodpecker or like instantly.ai for like the actual outreach part.
Yeah, instantly. I use that. Yeah, that's a good one. What's Woodpecker?
It's like pretty much the same thing to instantly.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like another alternative.
And then so you wired up your own custom API to kind of basically use 4.0 to give you like a little one-line personalization.
Yeah, either
based on the reach out.
Either a one-line personalization through there, or sometimes what we'll do is, so like if the direct connection of like, let's say the director of collections isn't responding, we'll go through their network, find other common connections and try and get a warm introduction. So then sending out the emails to the people that are providing the warm introduction, and then adding in the one-liner personalization to them as well using GPT-4o.
Yeah. So for the founders out there, this is gold. This is really great growth hacking stuff. So I think people are going to get a lot of value from that. So thinking about kind of the future of this, right? I mean, you hear headlines around AI taking all the jobs. Does debt collection as a human endeavor go away, or does it just radically shrink, kind of like maybe like agriculture did, 200 years ago? 70-80% of people were on farms, were involved in food production. Now it's like 2%. Does debt collection in the next 5 or 10 years go kind of the way of the farmer? Like, it's just like it's not really done by humans anymore?
Yeah, I mean, our main thesis is that like AI can completely replace and automate the entire service of the collection agency. So there's these large collection agencies that exist out there, a couple of like one or two publicly traded companies as well, where it's these entire divisions of humans doing it, doing really very repetitive tasks that our AI can not only completely automate, but is doing better than the humans themselves. So I really think that it will completely replace humans. I think what the debt collection industry might look like in the future, where AI is completely automated, is both solutions like CollectWise that are first-party collection software that completely automate the process, that being used directly by creditors. I could see debt buyers essentially still existing. So these are different financial institutions that will purchase debt, and their main value is like underwriting that. And they might use an internal software like CollectWise to do that themselves. And then I think collection agencies will either have to cease to exist and will shut down, or will exist as like a one-man business, kind of like a collections consultant, where their value is just kind of consulting them on the receivables and then white labeling a software like CollectWise to do all of the work for them, but they're not going to have a team of human collectors anymore.
So is there maybe another business model here where you're going to the agencies and saying, hey, I can help make your whole operation more efficient?
Yeah.
Or do you see like just going directly to the creditors themselves for the foreseeable?
Yeah, so I mean, we ideally go directly to the creditors. That's where we have the highest fee and the highest percentage, where we can charge like a 20-25% fee. Yeah. We're not selling the SaaS tools to collection agencies, since we believe we can automate their service. Though we are open to using collection agencies as a distribution channel, so not necessarily as a customer, but because of the fact that they have relationships with a lot of different enterprise creditors, we can go to them and just charge like a 10%, 15% fee, and then they mark it up by like another 10 or 15%, kind of like you would with like a reseller of like a payment service. So in that sense, they're kind of our customer, but not really. It's still the end creditor, but we're just using them as a distribution channel. So that is a potential option. But at the end of the day, we want to charge on a performance basis, because that's where we get the most value. We can automate the entire process, and it makes the most sense.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what's your vision for this in like 10 years? Like, what does this look like? CollectWise, you look back 10, 15 years from now and you're like, wow, we did it. What was it?
Yeah, I mean, I think our goal is to completely replace and automate the service of the agency, create kind of a more equitable financial ecosystem in the collections industry, where creditors can automatically recover their hard-earned balances and debtors can help pay off their debts in a more empathetic and personalized way. I think kind of like one analogy used is like payment processing when it was in like the 1900s, where all of these like legacy merchant consulting companies, and now it's just all automated with Stripe. And I think we can really do the same for the debt collection industry.
Yeah, really cool. So innovative. Let's switch to a rapid fire. What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice I received is just to like launch and do things before you've really figured it out.
Hmm.
And I think like a lot of times there's like that you can overthink things, you might not do it, or you don't even know if like what you're thinking of doing even makes sense. And I think by launching or just going live, whatever the context situation is, and putting yourself in that situation right away, you can one find out right away if it's going to work, and you can kind of adapt yourself and grow and achieve whatever that goal is, or achieve like going to market a lot faster in this case, relative to like if you're trying to plan it out. And I think that has been like probably the most important advice that's helped me a lot.
Yeah, it's like crawl, walk, run. Like you're not
Yeah.
going to get your product perfect. If you wait till it's perfect, you ship too late, and you got to get it in the hands of users and actually just start building and
Yeah.
and try to get people using it, and then try to get people who are using it to pay for it.
Yeah.
So many
Exactly.
times I'll talk to a founder who's like, "Why aren't you monetizing it? Like, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting till this and that and this. It's like, no, you got to get people paying for this as soon as possible.
Mhm.
That's how you know if you have a business here. Otherwise, it's just like a little project. What's a book you would recommend to every entrepreneur?
One I really like is the biography of Elon Musk. And in particular, what I thought was most interesting are his earlier days at like Zip2 and PayPal of when he started that. Because like everyone knows him now, like,
Yeah,
SpaceX, Tesla, like that part is not as interesting to me because that's more well known. But I like the earlier days of just seeing that grind and seeing his approach and constantly reinvesting every single thing he had was like really interesting. And the book kind of goes, I think it's by Ashley Vance, goes really deep into that.
oh, okay. This isn't the Isaacson one. This is
No, I don't.
the
The
other
one I
one.
read, I think, was by Ashley Vance. Yeah,
Oh, okay, that's the
that
one that
one
came
might
out
be
like
good.
5 years ago. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Isaacson one was amazing, just really well done. And a lot of people hate on Elon. What do you think? I mean, obviously he's a free speech guy. He's kind of veering right now and kind of giving Trump a voice on Twitter. Like some people like really hate Tesla. They really hate Elon. Is it just success breeds people who hate success, or what is that?
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess people can have their own opinion of like what they think of him in terms of like maybe comments he makes on Twitter or like political
Yeah,
comments or anything. And I don't really pay attention as much to that. I think one thing that like whether you like him or you don't like him, you really can focus on just like what he's like achieved in his success purely in business and
yeah,
kind of using that as a testament, whether you disagree or agree with his views, I think is just really important. But yeah, probably his
yeah.
like outspoken nature causes, some people to like him more, some people to hate him more. But
Disagree with him and some of his political stances and some of the stuff he's done there, but you can also appreciate his accomplishments. Both can be true, you know. And I
yeah,
think I
exactly.
think a lot of people have trouble having two or three ideas in their head that are contradictory, right? They kind of want to be like, no, he's evil and he's bad, right? But I'm like, well, yeah, he has different political views from you, but he's also look at all this really cool stuff that he's done, you know, freaking sending spaceships out into space, like that's pretty reusable rockets. And I mean, Tesla, basically reinvented cars, right? Now everybody's, trying to catch up. And then, yeah, you go back to the PayPal days and stuff like that. He's just been innovating for 3 decades now. And you could really appreciate him as an entrepreneur. So besides him, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
I mean, like the just like the honest answer for this would probably be like someone from like the really like early times, like Jesus or like Moses, like one of those people from like the
Like
medieval
somebody
time,
from
maybe
ancient
Julius,
history?
ancient history, Julius
Yeah.
Caesar, Alexander the Great, one of those people, I think would just be like the coolest, like in
Yeah.
terms of just like seeing what that's like, I think would be fascinating. And in terms of like who I would choose for like a business standpoint, it would probably be like an Elon Musk or like a Steve Jobs type of person
Yeah.
if I'm just trying to like learn a lot.
I love that. We're going to Italy. We went to Greece this last summer. We're going to go to Italy next summer. We just do one of these family vacations, once or twice a year. And we're going to do Italy. So we're watching Rome, the series
Oh,
on HBO Max from like 20 years ago. It's really good. It's really a shame it got canceled after 2 seasons because it's like the whole story of like Julius Caesar and Octavian, and like it's a really fascinating story.
yeah, no, I've always been interested in that.
What's one thing you can't live without?
I can't live without like friends or family. If that just be honest, probably like that's I've just noticed like a lot always happier when like around friends, family, stuff like that. I think it's really important just in every aspect of life.
Yeah, I love that. Describe your leadership style in one word.
I'd say humble. So trying to like lead by example, kind of like showing that I can do things, whether it's like on a technical standpoint when you're building something or just like through sales or marketing, just being humble and kind of leading by example.
I love that. When do you know it's the right time to delegate something?
Yeah, so I mean, this is definitely something I'm trying to work on myself. And I think it's really, once you have a system that's repeatable, and you have like a step-by-step process, you should always 100% delegate that part because that can be easily offloaded. But I think at scale as well, you have to start delegating as you further scale up the company, which plan to do. You have to delegate even processes that aren't repeatable and kind of give it to other people that can take ownership and figure it out themselves that have different areas of domain expertise. So I think earlier on, it's kind of something that's more predictable, and as you scale out, it starts to kind of be everything, and you become more of like a manager of people and recruiting.
Yeah. What's your favorite productivity tool?
My favorite is ChatGPT in terms of just like I actually use it for like everything, like even like sending emails and stuff like that. Like I'll just write something really quickly, put it into ChatGPT, send it out. And like I guess it is a productivity tool now, but like it saves me, I'd say, the most time out of like all of the other tools I use.
Reminds me of the show I'm watching, Rome, where like Cicero's like, take a letter, and and he's just dictating a letter. The scribe is writing out the letter, and that's what ChatGPT is for us now, right? You can just basically copy in, this email and be like, okay, I want to respond to this email, and I want to say this and that, and I press Windows H on my keyboard, and so it does voice to text. And then they don't have this on the web version, but you can talk to ChatGPT now if you have the mobile app. But you can basically have this conversation, and I find it easier almost to think out loud and talk out loud. That's why I like doing a podcast, right? Because it's basically just dialoguing with people about ideas. But it is that productivity tool that is just going to become part and parcel to all of our workflows in the coming years. It's just going to be this ambient thing that's always around.
Yeah, it's like everyone has their own like personal assistant now. AI really does every single work, and like as all these other tools are developed, it's kind of integrating with every single part of your workflow. So it's really completely automated. You have your own assistant in all these different areas, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. And as I keep reducing the cost of these by, an order to a magnitude every year, pretty soon it'll ingest everything you do. It'll see and hear and read everything. And it will just know everything about your life and business and be able to anticipate your needs. And I can't wait for the day when I log into Gmail in the morning, and all my emails are already responses are already drafted in just the way that I would respond. And all I have to do is kind of just go through and go, yep, sign that safe, yep, wire that money, yep, yep, I'll meet with that founder. Yeah, that's a good deck. I'll meet with that founder. Oh yeah, LP wants to meet, great. Like, and just it's just like talking to your chief of staff.
Yeah, that would be really cool when it gets to that level, which it will for sure.
It's coming. It's coming. What's a common misconception about debt collection that you'd like to clear up?
Yeah, I think one misconception is that the industry as a whole is like either like bad or like unethical or whatever you may call it. I think that what that misconception fails to consider are that there are certain actors in the industry, like legacy collection agencies or human collectors that are overly aggressive and are using deceptive means. I think that part is true. And that is what we're trying to replace and solve in the collections industry. But when done right, I think the debt collection industry is not bad at all. If anything, it plays a very key role in the economy in terms of like helping consumer credit. And when it's done well, it helps people get out of debt. It helps them put themselves into better financial circumstances, which I think AI and technology has like a really key role in doing.
Yeah. Let's not forget, just a couple centuries ago, you could be thrown in prison for going into debt and not paying it back. Right?
Yeah.
And so people like calling you to collect the debts that you said you would pay is not that bad of a thing. Like that's kind of par for the course. But yeah, I mean, people using nefarious means and deception and, you can see this as a force for good, using something like CollectWise in this industry and implementing AI to do this could remove some of the nefarious actors, the kinds of people that show up on your doorstep, right, to collect debts and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
If you weren't in fintech, what industry would you be?
It would probably be in either, so in terms of like if I wasn't in like the technology industry or like another area within the technology industry.
If you weren't doing CollectWise, I guess.
Okay, yeah. I would probably be doing something in like healthcare or SaaS.
Hmm.
I think like healthcare has a lot of opportunities for improvement using AI. I've always been a fan of like very legacy industries that have like like have a lot of human interaction, things that can
Yeah.
be outsourced, stuff like that. So like CollectWise is an example of that in debt collection, which can be a vertical within healthcare. But I think there's a lot of other applications within healthcare that can be completely automated because it's a very legacy industry, and I'd probably be doing something in that.
What is your go-to activity to unwind, and how do you maintain balance as a founder?
Yeah, I mean, my go-to activity would probably just be going to the gym. I love just going to the gym, at least, whether it's just like an
Lift
hour
some
a day.
weights,
Yeah, lift some
pump
weights,
some
do some
iron.
things. Yeah.
That's what
It's
I'm
just
going to do right
fun.
after this recording. Actually, my 12 o'clock, 12 to 1 is blocked off. I go lift weights. I have a tonal upstairs, which is an amazing product, and I only have to walk 30 seconds up my stairs to the room upstairs to do my little weight training, and it takes 20 or 30 minutes. But yeah, I do that every day as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think it makes me feel a lot better. I'm more productive after it. I'm
Yeah,
not like the biggest fan of like shows or movies. I just kind of want to grind on my company. But
yeah,
like lifting weights, listening to music, like it makes you feel good and more productive after. Anyway.
yeah. I love that. How do you maintain balance though? Like, are you just grinding 80, 100-hour weeks right now, or are you trying to like spend some downtime every day, or do you have an off day on the weekends? I'm asking for a friend.
I mean, so I'll hang out with my friends on the weekend,
Yeah,
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So like, go
yeah,
out, hang with them. I think is probably like most off time. I'll probably work like a little bit, like at least a little bit every day. Like maybe I'll take some time off on Saturday, but like, or I'll do like as like weird as it sounds, like fun work on like the Saturday or weekend,
yeah.
which is
Kind of the
like
not
more
urgent
like
fun stuff. Yeah,
yeah, like coding or like different activities like that.
yeah.
And then in the week, focus on like everything else. I don't really take that many breaks in terms of like the actual weekdays, but I definitely do take more time off, hang out with friends, chill out on like Friday, Saturday.
You know what I started doing is I started having like a no work Sunday. I realized I was working 7 days a week on Team Ignite, and I'm like, I'm burning myself out. And so I've literally on Sundays I just don't touch it as much as I want to. I'm just like, I'm not
Hmm.
going to do any work on Sunday. And
Yeah.
that's been really nice to just sort of unplug and veg out, read a book, play video games, whatever. Just not engage in work for one day a week. Because
Yeah.
otherwise I'm fitting it in all over the place. I'm fitting it in the evenings, and I'm fitting it on the weekends, and like it just starts creeping into every spare moment of my time.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because there's like, especially when you're running your own firm or company, there's always something to do. It's not like you have a set of
Always.
tasks. It's like
Yeah.
there's always something to do. So, sometimes putting that aside a little bit and either do like the fun work, I guess, or just other stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. So where can folks find out more about CollectWise and you?
Yeah, so you can go to our site, collectwise.co, and book a demo if you want to learn more about it, or can reach out to me directly via LinkedIn, or yeah, happy to chat.
Great. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm sure somebody out there needs to collect a debt and will hear this episode and get in touch. I think it's super cool what you're doing and very transformational. It's exactly the kind of stuff we like to back here at Team Ignite. So very cool stuff.
Yeah, sounds good. I appreciate it, Brian.
All right. Talk soon.